That's a huge discrepancy. So basically, they're having to build up that extra 1.5 inches. Friends that are thinking about getting this car, shoot this video over to them and let them take a look at it and see what they think. Just for the record, guys, I've spoken to Traxxas several times about this issue, and I don't want to go into that much great detail. I don't want to be like, what's going on, guys? We got two pretty awesome 8-scale buggies here. In today's video, we're going to be exposing the design flaw on this Traxxas Jato. We're going to be crunching some numbers, and I'm going to be laying it out for you guys and showing you guys real world examples of why this car has a design flaw. I'm not going to be doing a comparison video. This isn't a comparison video between these two vehicles. There's really not any real comparison between the two. This is not a video trying to bash Traxxas at all. I like the Traxxas products. This car is a blast to drive. I want to come out and say that right out of the gate. But there is a design flaw in this car. Traxxas is aware of it. I think I have a fix for it, but it'll probably be something that you guys never see because it involves quite a few new parts. But in today's video, I'm going to show you guys the design flaw. I'm going to show you guys parts that I've broken. Yeah, just expose it so you guys know what's going on with this car. So if we start out by looking at both of these vehicles here, I think we can all agree that these are marketed as 8-scale buggies, okay? They're at a certain scale. They're marketed to that scale. And when we start comparing the two together, we can see that they're identical in sizes. Now, yeah, they might be off an 1/8 inch here or 1/4 inch there. Not even a 1/4 inch, more like an 1/8 to 3/16 of an inch. And some of that can be contributed to the way that the vehicle is set up with as far as toe goes and wheelbase and that kind of thing. Before I did the comparison shots, I did extend the wheelbase on this. It's like one of the only tuning things that I did on this car. We're talking a couple millimeters, so it's irrelevant for this video. The area that we're gonna focus on in this car it's gonna be the rear axles. And I'm gonna show you guys how Traxxas has compounded offsets using 10th scale parts to get to this 8-scale size. Honestly, I can't believe that it was designed this way, but if you look back on Traxxas's history, you'll know they've kind of been doing it for like 2 decades with their Slash. That Slash is, I know it's marketed as a 10th scale short course truck, but when you break it down, it's right there to the size of an 8-scale buggy. And I'm not sure about the track width, but that car is really close to being an 8-scale size car. Now, it's not nowhere close to an 8-scale truggy, but if you compare it to an 8-scale buggy, and that's why so many people back in the day were converting the Slashes to the buggies, you know, call it the black backslash or whatever. So yeah, it's quite interesting. So I've done a bunch of measurements, and we're going to show you guys in the video the measurements that I did and the comparisons that I did just for size-wise with these two vehicles. We're gonna take a look at that. So let's set this aside for now. And let's just go over and look at a couple of videos of these side by side, and you guys will see that they're physically the same size. And like I said, they could be off, you know, an 1/8 inch here, 1/8 inch there, and that kind of thing, which is somewhat irrelevant to the point of this video. I guess the point of this video, like I said, is just to expose this flaw. Hopefully Traxxas might see this video, they might not. And just for the record, guys, I've spoken to Traxxas several times about this issue, and I don't want to go into that much great detail. I don't want to be like blowing them out of the water or whatever, but I will say that Traxxas is aware of the problem. They know about the problem. They may or may not be working on a fix for it. I have suggested my fix to them, which I will tell you guys in this video what the fix could be. Yeah, I want to say that. Now, the customer service with Traxxas is exceptional. They're basically giving out free axles like Halloween candy right now because they know it's an issue. I personally myself have received 4 sets, I think, from them that, you know, that I have extra sets or whatever. So yeah, there's that. The other thing too I wanted to mention about Traxxas too is there's, you know, not everybody within their customer service ring is the same person, obviously. So you might talk to some other people. The person I've been dealing with the most, he's a great individual, great gentleman, and I really appreciate all his time and help that he's given me. There was another guy that I got into a texting conversation with over their text, and it's just a personal note to Traxxas. I don't feel there's any reason to brag about your skill as a driver versus your customer base's skill as a driver. I think that's irrelevant. I think it's just downright childish. One of the conversations I had with him, the guy was trying to explain to me that it's my driving style that's breaking the car. And I tried to explain to him like, hey man, one of the times that the axles broke, I was just going up and down the street, like not even jumping. When I broke the hardened steel one, I was at a track and I was coming down the backside of a jump. I mean, it maybe landed off a little bit on an angle, but nothing like this or anything crazy. I just came down on the backside of a jump and it snapped. So for a Traxxas employee to tell their Traxxas customer that they're not driving the car right is just, like I said, downright childish. No professional driver is going to be purchasing a Traxxas car and using it on a professional level. That's just not what the car is designed for. Yeah, get that cleared out of the way. So yeah, guys, we're gonna be focusing on the rear here with the rear A-arms and that kind of thing. And I have a list of measurements over here, and I have some video to confirm the measurements and that kind of thing. So the things I want to focus on the most in here, I'll just pull this wheel off so I can kind of point. And I got some new parts here, guys. This is a tire balancer and new plugs, and I finally got this speedometer, this thing. These things are expensive now, guys. This was 80 or 90 bucks a couple months ago, and now it's way over that. So anyways, I got it. We're gonna be doing speed runs here quick. I got a kind of crazy tiny spool on the way with a bunch of big pinions and all that good stuff. So that's gonna be fun. So that's all coming up in future videos. And I also have the power system upgraded in my Arma car, and I have a few upgrades put on it, and I'm gonna be putting more upgrades. I have more upgrades coming, so stay tuned for those videos. All right, folks, so this section here is kind of what we're going to be focusing on here, and this is where the design flaw lies. Just to give you guys more knowledge of the way I'm measuring this, I've called this, there's a bearing face here, and then there's the face right here that the wheel actually sits on. Okay, pulling this right out of the box, you take the wheel off, you can see that the hex is offset from the bearing. Now this is, I'm going to say in my experience, this is non-typical, because typically what you see is you see the hex, no matter if it's 17, 12, whatever, the hex is typically sitting right against the bearing carrier. Okay, and that's true in the Arma, that's true in the 5 Traxxas crawlers that I have, that's true in the 2 team associated buggies that I have, and it's true in the Tamiya buggy that I have. So again, going back to that 10th scale deal, okay, these arms are off the slash. And like I just said earlier, yeah, that's technically an 8th scale buggy, or the size of one, but maybe the track width is not as much. And then so here you go, we have to put these adapters on here basically to get it stretched out further. Okay, not only that, if you look at the wheels, and I know a lot of you guys are familiar with this weird offset, you can't just put on regular 8 scale buggy wheels on this Traxxas car because it narrows the track width. And that's because they have an offset built into the wheel on top of the offset built into the hex. And that's why I'm saying they are compounding the offsets. And what it's doing is just putting a lot of leverage on the axle stub. Yeah, so we see the offset here done with the hex adapter, and then we also see the offset in the wheel too. And that's all being done to get that wider track width so it could be on the same level as an 8 scale buggy. And when we look at the overall track width compared to these two, if you just line them up side by side together, they look the same. The measurements I took a couple different measurements, and I went from just kind of outside of wheel to outside of wheel, trying to get the best measurement, as you can see. And then I did another measurement to where I went to the inside to try to eliminate some of the toe, because this car has more toe in than this car does in the rear. So just measuring the back of the tires is not going to be that accurate. So I did try to go in between here. Overall, they're right there with maybe 1/8 of an inch. So let's say the track width, outer tire to outer tire on the Arma car is going to be right at 12 inches. And that's what I got measured when I measured it. And on the Traxxas here, let's say it's 11 7/8. So say an 1/8 inch narrower. If we take and we measure bearing to bearing, okay, that's the face of the bearing on the hub here, you guys will see that on the Arma car, bearing to bearing is 11 inches, okay? Then when we go over to the Traxxas, you can see that the bearing to bearing is 9.5 inches, and that's where the problem lies. That's a huge, huge discrepancy. So basically, they're having to build up that extra 1.5 inches to get the track width. And how are you going to do that? Well, they did it with offsetting the hubs and the wheels to try to get that, which in turn puts all that leverage on the axle stub itself. when you look at the face right here where the wheel bolts on, the space between this and the face of the bearing on the Traxxas here, we have 5/8 of an inch. Was that correct? Yeah, bearing to face, yeah, is 5/8 of an inch. Whereas you go back to the Arma and it's right at 3/16, which is the thickness of the hex. So you can't put the hex inside the bearing, so it has to be there. And that's, like I said, going back to all the other RC car designs where the hex rides right up against the bearing. You know, your face, your wheel face, or whatever you want to call it, is going to be the thickness of the hex. So that's kind of unavoidable. But it does show that it's right up against the bearing. Oh, so if we go face to face, so if we go from this face over to this face here, we're coming up with about 11 1/4 to 11 3/8 of an inch on the Arma car, and we're coming up with right around 10 5/8 on the Traxxas car. So again, substantially, even though we got to the hex adapters, we're still lacking that half inch or so. Okay, so then we go to the offset here, and I did measure this, but I don't think I actually took a measurement. I was going to do it with my calipers to get a more accurate measurement. Let's do that. I don't know if this will be big enough here. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's close enough for what we're doing. That's almost exactly a half inch. If we go back, okay, so we're saying bearing to bearing 11, that's an 1.5 inch difference. Then you have your 5/8 here, and then you have a half inch here. So this is more than what I thought the offset was going to be. I think I explained, or hopefully explained to you guys, why this is a design flaw. And let's look at some of my broken parts so I can show you exactly where they're breaking. All right, so here's an axle shaft. This is actually the hardened steel upgraded axles that I put on this car. They cost $80. And this axle stub lasted maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 runs. And this was the one that I broke coming, I was at the track and I was coming down the backside of a jump, not even landing crazy, and it just snapped, the wheel fell off. It sounded like almost like a gunshot. It was so loud. So this one is snapped on an angle kind of. I can't find the other one. I've broken 2 or 3 other of the stock shafts, and that was kind of a clean straight break right after the pinhole. But as you can see that this one broke kind of on an angle, and again, just past the pinhole. You know, when you look at where this is sitting in there, you see that pinhole there, and then just right past that, it's just snapping off. And again, that's going back to Traxxas trying to get to that 8 scale track width by adding these adapters and then offsetting the wheel even more, which again is just, it's just wrenching. So, you know, if you have your axle sticking out here and, you know, you're putting all your pressure here versus here, you're going to have a lot more force out here, you know, knocking the axle and whatnot. So let's look at one more thing before I tell you guys what I think the fix is going to be. And we're going to pull these hex adapters off. I'm going to try to get them off there too, and we're going to look at the actual axles themselves. All right, guys, I got both of the hex adapters off here on each of the buggies, and you guys can kind of see the difference here. I'll get some close-up shots here. Now, the first thing that you can see right out of the gate is the difference in pin sizes. The difference in pin sizes is downright absurd. This pin is like 5 times the size of this pin, and this is what connects the axle to the hub adapter. I've sheared several of these pins on this car, so there's that. Now, the other cool thing about the adapter on the Arma car is it's not necessarily captured, but the pin goes through, you guys can see that, the pin goes through the whole hex, whereas on the Traxxas car, it doesn't. The hex adapter's still in here. There's just a slot in there. Like on the old RC cars, you used to see a slot in there, and then the pin would go in there and that kind of deal. The great thing about having the pin going through the whole hex adapter is if you lose your retainers, the wheel's still going to stay on the car. That's one of the reasons why you see a little tiny set screw here on the Arma, which is the hub retainer, the wheel retainer, whatever you want to call it, versus this massive machine nut that's on the Traxxas car, okay? And that's because this is literally holding the wheel on. And these come loose all the time, and if that comes off, then your wheel's going to fall off and you're going to lose your pin. That's happened several times, and you lose the hub retainer too. So just by having the pin captured all the way through is going to increase the performance of the vehicle, which I'm really surprised they didn't do that on this one. You also take a look too at just the size of the axle. Now this axle stub is hollow here, and I'm not sure, it probably ends the hollowness after the pinhole, but it's hollow here. It does look to be hardened steel, but it's way thicker. I know this is probably all done in millimeters, but we'll see. Yeah, it's a little under, it's right at 3/16 of an inch, okay? Versus this one, which these are 6 millimeters, and these are not even a 1/4 inch. And so going back to these axles here, you guys, these are the 6 millimeter upgraded axles that I think they come on one other Traxxas vehicle. I want to say it's a Stampede or something, but there's only 2 Traxxas vehicles running this. There was only one before this car. And so it seems to me like the engineers at Traxxas knew that they were going to be compounding those offsets, and they're like, hey, let's beef up the axle. Let's run 6 millimeter axles versus on the Slash, they run 5 millimeter axles. Still didn't work because it's still snapping a lot of axles, because like we exposed here, it's all that offset built up past the hub. There's that. You can see we got much beefier parts on here. We have an axle carrier that sits all the way out to as close as it can get to the face of the wheel. Whereas on this car, we don't have that. We have it being pushed out 5/8 of an inch to the face. Then on top of that, the actual wheel itself is offset, adding another 1/2 inch. So again, you guys, just not the greatest design, because you're putting all the pressure on these axles here. The fix for this, you guys, it's kind of simple. I highly doubt Traxxas will do this because it would require quite a bit of parts to be changed. But the ultimate fix is basically just to extend the A-arm, okay? We looked at the track widths. We know that this whole A-arm system setup is, you know, about 1.5 inches or so narrower than what you would find, say, on a typical 8-scale buggy. So by increasing the length of the arm, that allows you to eliminate this hex adapter and eliminate the wheel offset. Okay, so you get this pushed out. The axles may or may not work here, but then this you know, you would have to redesign a hex adapter that set flush on the bearing carrier. You'd have to add the tie rods here, and like I said, these may or may not be long enough to accommodate for that extra, you know, 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch, whatever they're going to need to push that out. If you did it the same thing in the front, which you probably would, I haven't broken one in the front, so I don't know what the major difference is there. You would, again, you would have to have the new hubs, the redesigned hubs. You'd have to have the tie rods up here. That'd be a total of 4. So you're looking at 4 arms, 4 hex adapters, and 6 tie rods. So I highly doubt that's something that Traxxas is going to remanufacture and push out to their customers. I honestly don't see a fix for this without doing it that way, unless you just completely go overboard on the size of the axles, which would require maybe even having some new bearing carriers up here to facilitate larger bearings. So there you go, guys. That's my analysis on this. I hope all this made sense to you guys. Yeah, I mean, there it is. People make mistakes sometimes. The thing is, you know, companies or people who make mistakes, they're looked at as how they handled their mistake. And I told you guys, I've spoken to Traxxas, okay? And they're well aware of this. So if they don't fix this, you guys can take that for what it's worth. If they do fix it, hell, I might go out and get me another Jato. I don't know. Like I said, this car is really fun. I know I have this one right here, but this one's for sale. So I'm trying to recoup some of my money that I put into this. And speaking of this, I got my new power system put in and all that good stuff. So we're going to be doing videos on that soon. If you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to post them down in the comment section below. Tell me your experiences with the Jato. I know there's lots of people out there running this car that haven't broke any axles yet, which is kind of perplexing to me. I mean, I didn't run the car that much. I maybe have 20 packs through it, maybe. I don't even know if I have that many through it. And I broke 3 axles. I broke a bunch of pins. I bent both front shock shafts. It's currently got a busted knuckle up here. I'm waiting on that to come any day in the mail so I can put that on there before I let it go. What else? There was a couple other things too, I believe, but yeah, crazy stuff. So yeah, again, I hope this video made sense. And if you guys aren't subscribed yet, which there's a 95% chance you are not, make sure and hit that subscribe button, hit the like button if you guys like these videos, and share them with your friends or friends that are thinking about getting this car. Shoot this video over to them and let them take a look at it and see what they think. So until next time, folks.